This is episode 214 of Teacher Approved. Welcome back to the podcast. On Thursdays this summer, we are sharing a weekly Can't Miss Classic, one of our favorite Teacher Approved episodes that is full of timely takeaways.
We handpicked these classic episodes to be ones we know you'll want to hear this summer as you recover and as you prepare for a new school year.
Now that we're into August, a lot of you are already underway with the new school year, or if not, you're just days away.
And if your brain is deep into the minutia of classroom setup and first week plans, this is the episode for you.
We know how overwhelming it can feel to plan those first few days. You want everything to go smoothly, but where do you even start?
This episode breaks it down into something manageable, 3 simple lists. That's it. 3 things to help you structure your time, focus on what matters most, and prepare for the unpredictable.
Plus, we bring back one of our favorite frameworks, ATTABOY, to help you choose activities that actually support your goals for building classroom community, establishing routines, and learning about your students.
Whether you're already back in the classroom or just wrapping up final prep, this episode is a great way to pause, refocus, and make sure your time is going toward what really matters.
So pull up a chair, maybe grab a notebook, and let's start mapping out a calm, intentional, and doable first week of school. All right, let's get into it.
You're listening to Teacher Approved, the podcast helping educators elevate what matters and simplify the rest. I'm Heidi.
And I'm Emily. We're the creators behind Second Story Window, where we give research-based and teacher-approved strategies that make teaching less stressful and more effective. You can check out the show notes and resources from each episode at secondstorywindow.net.
We're so glad you're tuning in today. Let's get to the show.
One of the topics we love to talk about is how to use the first days of school as a launch pad for a successful school year.
It's easy to just fill those first few days with random activities, or to skip the time filling altogether and just jump right into content because you don't know what else to do.
But that's not really helping anyone. Instead of starting the school year by keeping kids busy, let's start the year by making an impact.
That's what we're going to do today. And not just the first day. Let's plan on an impactful first week.
Or whenever it is that you're ready to start teaching your regular units. Your first week may not actually be 5 days. If you start school on a Wednesday, your first week might only be 3 days.
Yeah, my kids' school is starting on a Thursday for the second time in a row. And Thursday and Friday are both early out days.
Oh, fun.
So not normal days at all. But you may only have to plan 2 days your first week. Maybe you're going to use the following Monday as part of your first week plans as well if you are in that situation.
As we go through the episode, when we say first week, just remember that you're measuring that week with your heart and not the calendar.
Yes.
Your first week is whatever you are considering it to be.
Yeah. And ideally, I think at least 4 days would be good before transitioning out of first week mode. But that's just my preference. Your mileage may vary.
However you define your first week, you still need a plan for those days. And we promise we can keep this process from being overwhelming. In fact, you could start with just 3 lists.
We're playing a little fast and loose with the definition of a list because the first list you need is your schedule.
A schedule is totally a list. It's a list of times.
Okay, true. You're going to start with your list of times, or as you might call it, your schedule. One of the advantages of being an established teacher is that you've probably got a good handle on your regular daily schedule. But no matter how long you've taught, the first days of school send us all back to square one.
Because our kids are starting new, it means we're starting new too. We can't plop these kids down in the middle of a regular school day. They just don't know how to function yet. So we have to meet them where they are and gently nudge them in the direction we want them to go.
And we can't herd them in the right direction if we don't know which direction they should be going. So the first schedule you need isn't for your first day of school. The first schedule you need is for a regular day of school.
We walk you through all the nitty-gritty details of schedule crafting in episode 140. So go check that out if you want some guidance there. Then once you have your regular schedule, we're going to adapt it for the first day.
To start with, we need to get down to the bare bones. Pretend this is a home renovation show. We are taking this baby down to the studs. No more popcorn ceilings for us.
Do you have to take popcorn ceilings down to the studs? I don't know now.
I don't know if they're in the ceiling, are they called studs? I don't know, but that's all right. It's all right. That's why we don't do home renovation. But in this case, the studs are the fixed events in your schedule. These are the things that you don't get to control. Think lunchtime, recess, specialty classes, mandated intervention time, all that good stuff.
And the fixed events in your first day of school schedule are probably pretty similar to the fixed events in your regular daily schedule, so that makes them easy to identify. Then with our fixed events listed, we can add our hinge events.
We talk a lot about this in episode 140 if you have questions, but the gist is that hinge events are what the success of your fixed events hinge on. In order for your class to go to a fixed event like lunch or recess, what do they need to know to be successful in advance?
On the first day, you need a comfortable cushion of time for your hinge events before and after each fixed event. If you teach first or second grade, you might want 20 to 30 minutes before lunch to teach all of the necessary procedures, and maybe even 5 or 10 minutes after lunch to solve any issues that cropped up during lunchtime.
Older grades might not need as much time for their hinge events, but it's better to err on the side of too much time planned than not enough. Don't assume that your students know what to do, because there are always a few who don't know, don't remember, or don't care.
As you progress through your first week, your hinge events can get shorter. On the second day of school, you might only need 20 minutes for lunchtime prep, and that window can get shorter every day until you're down to the 10 minutes it normally takes to get everyone ready to go.
By now, you've got your fixed events listed and your hinge events listed, but there are probably quite a few holes in your day still. So let's figure out what to do with those times.
This is where your second list comes in. You need a list of your goals and a collection of activities you could do to meet those goals.
So you knew ATTABOY was coming, right? If we're talking about back to school, ATTABOY stands for your goals of affirming, training, teaching, and assessing at the beginning of the year.
If you have our readiness checklist or our first day of school planning guide, we have ATTABOY lists already made. All you have to do is add your own goals. If you don't have either of those resources yet, check the show notes for links that will take you right to them.
For each of those 4 areas, you want a bank of activity ideas to draw from. We shared lots of ideas for affirming in episodes 73 and 148. So go back and check those out if you need some ideas of specific examples. But basically, affirming activities are anything you do to create a positive feeling in your classroom. That includes whatever you do to introduce yourself, build classroom community, get to know your students, and help your students get to know each other.
Affirming activities are my favorite part of back to school. They're the fun stuff. So they're the find somebody who bingo game and collaborative art projects and the first day time capsules. All of that falls under the umbrella of affirming.
Your goals for training are all about your procedures and expectations. So add to your list all of the procedures you need to teach and all of the school tools you need to introduce. Organize each item by how important it is. So for example, your attention signal is more important than your procedure for checking out recess equipment. And how to take care of pencils is more important than how to take care of calculators.
Listing your procedures and expectations in order from most to least important will help make sure that you're setting your kids up to be successful and independent.
Now, when it comes to your goal for teaching, you might be itching to jump into your first units, and you can add those to your goals list, but there are a few things you might need to teach first.
For my goals for teaching, I started by introducing any academic routines we used in the class. For example, my second graders did a word sort every day. Because I wanted the focus to be on the process and not the content, the first week I gave everyone the same super simple picture sort. I didn't care how well they could sort the rhyming pictures. I wanted to teach them how to efficiently cut out their sort, how to store it, how to use their word study notebook, and then the procedures for the different sorts that we would use during the year.
And you can apply that same concept to any of your instructional routines that you need to teach. Make the content so simple that your students don't need to think about it so that they're free to focus on mastering the process.
Yeah, this will work with math games, learning centers, spelling practice, number of the day, online activities, vocabulary cards, establishing silent reading time, journal time, and really any other academic routine that you need students to do independently.
Add all of that to your teaching list, and then it's time for assessing. You've probably got some mandated assessments waiting to go. Add them to your assessing goal list, but hopefully you're allowed to hold off on those for a couple of days. Instead, use the first few days of school for some informal assessments.
Right. You want to know who struggles to get things finished or who is overwhelmed by any of the content, especially when you're keeping the content so simple.
That is a big red flag to be on the lookout for. If you're in the early days of school and you're keeping your content easy, but you have kids who are still struggling, that tells you right away you need to dial into whatever's going on there.
You also want to be watching for kids who are struggling to work as a team, maybe kids who wander at recess instead of engaging with friends, kids who sit alone at lunch. All of these are important assessments, even if you're not submitting any forms to your principal.
Add formal and informal assessments to your assessment goal list. Then start using these ATTABOY goals to fill in the gaps in your schedule.
On the first day, we recommend starting the very first day with a calming activity like pattern blocks.
And we have a brand new set of first day arrival activities that are first day of school Lego mats if you don't want to use pattern blocks. Both of those resources are linked in the show notes. We think you're going to love them.
So we've got a great plan for starting the very first day. How are you going to start the second day? First, we have the fixed event of kids arriving. And then you add the hinge events of everything that needs to happen in the morning. Eating breakfast, unpacking a backpack, getting a chair. All of that setting up has to happen in the morning. The kids aren't there ahead of time to prep them for what to do.
Because there's so much to do in the morning, I made sure to teach that routine on the afternoon of the first day. That gave us lots of time to tell, try, tally, talk our procedures without the craziness of kids arriving at different times and needing different things. Then on the morning of the second day, I have the steps listed on the board for reference, but I also make sure I'm present and engaged in directing them to their next steps.
If you don't have the chance to teach your arrival procedures on the first day, I would recommend planning a second morning of a simple time filler activity. If you've introduced crayons to your students, you could even have something as easy as a coloring page. And then I would schedule a good chunk of time later in the day to teach your arrival procedures for the third day of school.
There are just so many things that have to happen in the morning that you'll wear yourself out if you try to introduce them in the moment that they need to happen for real. It's much easier to teach at another time.
Once we've got the morning routine out of the way and we've planned some hinge event time to discuss how it went and troubleshoot any issues that cropped up, take a look at your ATTABOY goals to decide what to do next.
We recommend mixing things up. So if you've just done a lot of procedure-y stuff, switch gears with something from your affirming list.
The pattern of teach a procedure, do an activity, teach a procedure, do an activity is a good one to keep in mind throughout the whole first week of school.
Also, keep working through that list of procedures and school tools. Review anything that isn't sticking and introduce your less frequent procedures like going to an assembly and how to be responsible with the stapler.
Oh, the good old stapler. And check out our guided discovery lessons if you want some already done for your resources for introducing your school tools. There is a link to that in our show notes.
That's one of my favorite back to school things that we have. As your list of procedures to teach gets shorter, start looking at your teaching list. What learning routines do you want to get in place?
This is another time when knowing your regular classroom schedule is helpful. We want to get kids settled into the daily routine as quickly as possible. One way to start doing this is to teach your subjects at the time that you would normally teach them.
With my second graders, we did math after morning recess, so that's a good time to do math, even if it's not a regular math lesson. On the second and third days of school, math time looked like learning how to take care of math manipulatives, and I scheduled that during our regular math time.
With my second graders at 1:30, I would gather the class to listen to a story because on a normal school day, that's when they would do their reading time. After the story, I had them get the books that I had put in their cubby and learn how to choose a reading spot. And then we started the long process of building on-task stamina. I'd hang out at my reading table, since that's where I would normally be during reading time, and pretend to be busy while I set a timer and secretly watched what the kids were doing. As soon as I saw one of the kids start looking around, I gathered everyone back for a discussion. Now, this isn't meant as any kind of punishment. It's just getting a baseline. Okay, everyone, we just read for 2 minutes and 16 seconds. That is so good. But I bet we could try it again and get to 3 whole minutes.
The tricky part about scheduling all of the procedure lessons and hinge events and introducing routines is that you have no way of knowing how long they will take to teach. Do you need a 5-minute reading time or a 25-minute reading time? Oh man, if your kids could read 25 minutes on task at the start of the year, that would be sweet. I want to hear about that.
That would be absolute heaven. But even though 25 minutes is a long shot, you really can't predict how long anything will take. That's why you need to plan for things to take twice as long as normal, but prepare like your students will finish in half the time.
And that's where our third list comes in. You need a list of time filler activities. Time fillers are anything that can keep kids engaged for a few minutes. Maybe it's a silly action song like My Aunt Came Back, or it's an 8-minute video. You just need an assortment of activities that you can turn to in a moment's notice.
In our first day of school planning guide and in the Ready for School checklists, we have a time filler activity list just waiting for you to add your content. There are 6 categories of easy activities: books to read aloud, movement activities, songs, and so on. Fill this list with as many ideas as you can think of.
Next to each activity, write an estimate for how long it will take. If you find yourself with 5 extra minutes, you want to be able to identify a 5-minute activity in a hurry.
And now that we've got our schedule made, a list of activities to meet our ATTABOY goals, and a list of time fillers, can you guess what we're going to do with them? We're going to write a script.
And this isn't a script like Enter Stage Right, Teacher Greets Students. It's more like writing subplans for yourself.
Planning the first week of school requires so much detailed thought that it's just too hard to try and carry it all in your head. Do yourself a favor and write it all down on paper. Our first day of school planning guide even has blank scripts that you can fill out for the whole first week. For each activity, you can record all of the details you need to remember and have a list of materials you need.
If you want more information about scripts, go back to episode 145 where we break it down in detail.
So there are the 3 lists you need to plan your first week of school. Start with your schedule list, make a list of your back to school goals, and list all your time filler activities. Put them all together in a script, and hey, your first week is all set.
Now, what are your favorite first week activities? Come and share about them in the Teacher Approved Facebook group. We hope those 3 lists gave you the clarity and confidence you need to head into your first week with a little more calm and a lot more purpose.
Remember, it's not about doing everything. It's about doing the things that matter most. If you start with intention, the rest will just follow.
Whether you're trying out the ATTABOY framework for the first time or just tweaking your plan from last year, give yourself credit for showing up with care and thoughtfulness. That is the real magic.
And if this episode helped bring a little order to the back-to-school chaos, consider sharing it with a teacher friend who might need the same boost.
We'll be back next Thursday with another Can't Miss Classic to help you navigate the new year with clarity and confidence.
Until then, take a deep breath, trust your instincts, and know that you are building something meaningful one day at a time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Teacher Approved. I'm Heidi.
And I'm Emily. Thank you for listening. Be sure to follow or subscribe in your podcast apps so that you never miss an episode.
You can connect with us and other teachers in the Teacher Approved Facebook group. We'll see you here next week. Bye for now.
Bye.